Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a quick unboxing and first look at the Samsung Galaxy Tab S6. Now this is the 128 gig capacity model, which sports 6 gigs of RAM, less than the 256 gig version, which has 8 gigs of RAM. Those are the principal differences. This price point, you're looking at $650 US. For the upgrade in internal storage capacity and RAM on the other model, you're looking at $730 US retail. With that said, not much to show on the box. You can see how thin it is. Back of the box, they're just telling you what comes in there, which, as you can see, is the tablet itself, which of course has a 10.5-inch display. I already mentioned 120 gigs of internal storage. Be mindful, though, of that we do have a micro SD card slot on both this and the higher capacity version. Of course, an S Pen, wall charger, quick start guide, and that's pretty much it. Let's get this thing out of the box and take a look at what we're working with. Now, I took a pass on the Tab S4, and I think anyone who's a subscriber noticed that because I've covered pretty much every generation of Galaxy Tab. S at least, their higher end, or the Note line back in the day, my old favorite. And I wish that Samsung would bring back something like that that would be over 12 inches so that we could get into the, I would say, more like 13-inch category, something that is of a similar stature to the iPad Pro. And a lot of people might think this is a lot of money for a tablet, but if you look at what is being charged by Apple, it clearly is not. I mean, considering this is Samsung's top of the line tablet experience, the price you're paying at either $650 for this or $730 for the higher internal storage, as well as greater RAM at 8 gigs again, as opposed to 6. Those are still fairly low prices when compared to what iPad Pros go for. And that's, I think, the beauty of what Sammy has done here. Now, they've redesigned the S Pen. See how cleanly I can open this. It does now charge on the device, taking a cue from Apple. It is Bluetooth enabled. It's bigger. You can see it right there. This is the gray version of this, and I'm doing this as carefully as possible. And I may end up trying out the 8 gig version as well. I'm not going to say that I absolutely will not. And the reason I say that is because the fact that I've got a Note 10 here that has, you know, a Note 10 Plus, excuse me, that has 12 gigs of RAM does leave a lot to be desired when it comes to the specs of this tablet. Granted, this is half of the price, basically, of the Note 10 Plus, so bear that in mind. Front-facing camera right there. On the left side, you've got the Pogo ports for the dock, the keyboard dock, which I also may be picking up. At the bottom, we have speakers, our Type-C connection port for charging. You know, nothing new really on the design other than the S Pen. Volume rocker, power button, 2 cameras on the rear. There's the S Pen slot. The screen is now on. You can see that. It's telling me, let's go. Let's look at the terms and conditions. And I'm not going to get into that right now. The S Pen, the redesign, I like. I like that it's larger. What I don't like, because now this is a more natural feel, what I don't like is that now we're relegated to this slot that unless you purchase, I think it goes this way, it might be the other way, it's on the instructions there, it's this way. Unless you purchase, and it's got a fairly solid magnetic attachment there, but unless you purchase that case that Samsung makes or a third-party case, there's no good way of ensuring that you will not lose the S Pen. And it now does need to charge. So it's a trade-off, no question about it. This follows the design cue that I feel like Samsung has been going towards. I'm glad this is not a glass finish back, thank God. I'm not really a huge fan of those. And it seems like it's pretty fingerprint resistant, which I already am liking. I'm not seeing fingerprints, and that's coming from me. I'm a fingerprint magnet myself, so that's pretty good. Moving right along, I'm going to put this down, show you what else is in the box, and then I'm going to just run through some specs. We have our quick charger right here. The battery in here is over 7,000 milliamp hours, so I'm expecting good battery life to say the least. Inside of here we have, I'm expecting Type-C, yes, for charging, to go with that. Pop that right back into its little container. And then this is paperwork, which that's how you eject the tray for the micro SD card expansion. And then we have some spare tips for the S Pen. And that's everything. Not going to bother to look at the paperwork. Let's see, already that fell off. And this is a design flaw already for me. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. But let's just say I've read them all.
You can restore the settings and contents from your old device.
Going to skip this for now. I can do that later.
Quite handy here.
And let me log into my network. And, you know, I expect good things from this product because it does have a competent CPU. It has competent hardware all around. Best screen in class, in spite of what I can see is going on right now with my lighting. It's checking for updates. Now, while it does that, let me talk a little bit about, try to back this out also to see if I can help out with that, the waves you're getting. It's from lighting. It's not the tablet, don't worry. But in terms of specifications, while it looks for updates, I already mentioned it's a 10.5-inch display, 2560 by 1600 resolution. Of course, it is a Super AMOLED, latest and greatest gen of that. I'm going to skip this. No reason to do a Google sign-in for this right now. Let's just get straight to the experience. Come on. And, you know, 16 million colors, nothing new. Aspect ratio, 16 by 10. In terms of the processor I mentioned, we have a new chip. It's the Snapdragon 855, the same one you'll find in the Note 10 and Note 10 Plus, which is definitely a good thing, in my opinion. And beyond that, I'm going to say not now on this. Skip anyway. Beyond that, 6 gigs of RAM here. You're not getting the 8 like you do in the more expensive model, and that might be a good reason to actually be interested in the higher end model, because I do think that extra few gigs of RAM is probably a worthwhile investment. But this is a very expensive tablet, as I mentioned, not when compared to Microsoft, of course. I mean, excuse me, I meant Apple. Said some kind of Freudian slip. I'm not comparing this to a Surface Pro because it doesn't run Windows. It's not a computer. It's a tablet. But we know these days a lot of people use it as such. Now, I mentioned the micro SD card slot for storage expansion. That's a reason to consider sticking with the 128 gig model because, quite frankly, do you need the 256 gigs of storage when you can throw, you know, at least a 256 gig micro SD card in there affordably? In terms of wireless connectivity, you have 802.11ab, GN, and AC, Bluetooth 5.0, Wi-Fi Direct. It does not have a headphone jack, but I think you knew that already. And I didn't see an included Type-C to 3.5 mil, so for some that'll be a problem. Cameras on here. We are capable of shooting 4K at 30 frames per second. You're not getting the 60 frames that you would with one of Samsung's smartphones. In terms of the, you know, audio performance, I'm expecting it to be as good, if not better, of course, than the previous generation. There is a fingerprint reader. You have face recognition, facial recognition. You know, all of these things are there. And as I mentioned, that 7,040 milliamp hour battery, it's rated at 15 hours. I'll be happy if it gets 10 plus. Colors, there are, I think you've got this gray, they have blue, and then I think it's another take on that rose gold pink color going on. And that's pretty much it. I mean, overall, this is, in my opinion, you know, your best tablet on the market that is priced, I want to say, the way it should be, which is definitely subjective, but in terms of, you know, it could be much more expensive if they were following Apple's cue, and, you know, the pen is included. I don't love that we have to charge it now. That's not something I'm in love with. But, you know, overall, I expect pretty good things from this because it is a premium product. Again, disregard what's going on with the screen. Just tap on some things, see how Wi-Fi is working, and it's working. You know, no issues there. So, looks good. I mean, I like the way the tablet looks, like the way it feels. It's well made, no questions about that. And the S Pen redesign is big. We've got some new capability with it in terms of gestures. I'm not going to get into that. You can see already the S Pen is at 10%. It needs to be charged ASAP. So, with that said, I am going to turn this off, put this guy back where it belongs with that's its charging, receiving, its spot, and it stays on pretty well. I mean, it's not falling off. But that is your unboxing of the Samsung Galaxy Tab S6. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. Hit that like button. And as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Later.